Have you ever been in a conversation where someone's speaking so fast, it feels like your brain just shuts down? You're standing there, nodding, but inside you're thinking, what did they just say? How do I respond?
Oh, we've all been there. You understand English when it's slow and clear, but the moment real people start talking at work, in a cafe, or during small talk, you freeze. It's like your mind goes blank.
If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. And here's the truth. Fluency is not just about knowing more words or perfect grammar. It's about understanding and responding quickly in real-life conversations. That's what we're unlocking for you today.
This episode is packed with practical tools, 10 powerful chapters designed to help you listen faster, think quicker, and speak with confidence. By the end, you'll know how to handle fast-paced conversations without panicking or getting stuck.
So, if you're tired of awkward pauses, if you want to stop feeling nervous when native speakers talk fast, and you're ready to speak English naturally, even in quick conversations, stay with us. This could change the way you communicate forever. Let's get started. Let's be honest, every English learner has faced this situation. You've spent months, maybe years, learning vocabulary and grammar. You watch YouTube videos, read articles, and score well on English tests. But then, you step into the real world. Someone speaks to you in English, fast, casual, maybe with an accent, and suddenly it feels like you know nothing. Your heart races, your brain freezes, you're standing there, searching for words, but all you manage is an awkward smile. Sounds familiar? Don't worry, you're not alone. This is what we call conversation panic. It's that mental block when speech is too quick and your brain can't keep up. And guess what? It's not because your English is bad. The real reason is deeper. It's about response speed and how your brain processes fast information in real time. Today, we'll explain why this happens and, more importantly, how you can train your brain to react faster and finally break free from that panic mode.
Oh, Adam, I can feel that panic even now, because I've been there. I remember my very first week in the UK. I had studied English in school for years. I thought I was ready. Then I went to a coffee shop and the barista smiled and said, "All right, how's it going?" It was such a simple, friendly phrase, right? But my brain, it went into meltdown. I started translating word by word. All right, is Han going? And by the time I figured it out, she was already asking the next customer for their order. I felt so embarrassed. And that's when I realized, real conversations don't wait for you. They move fast. Native speakers don't slow down for you. They expect you to jump in, keep up, and respond naturally. But when you're translating every word in your head, you're already too late. That moment taught me something important. Fluency isn't about knowing everything. It's about responding quickly, even when you don't understand every single word. That's the skill we need to build.
Exactly, Sophia. And what you said is key. It's not about perfection, it's about speed. See, here's the science behind it. When you're in a fast conversation, your brain is doing multiple tasks at once. It's listening, processing meaning, thinking about your reply, and preparing to speak, all in just seconds. But if you're still stuck in the habit of translating from your native language into English, your brain is working overtime. It's like trying to run a race while wearing heavy weights. No wonder you freeze. And this is what most learners get wrong. They blame their grammar or think they need to learn more words. But the truth is, your grammar is often good enough. It's your response speed that needs training. Think of it like driving a car. Knowing the traffic rules is important, but if you can't react quickly when a car suddenly swerves in front of you, you'll crash. Conversation is the same. Quick reactions matter more than textbook knowledge.
Oh, absolutely. We've heard this from so many of you. Like Priya from India, she told us she was confident in her classroom English. But when she started her job in Canada, she felt like she didn't understand anything. Her colleagues spoke fast, used slang, and she felt completely lost. Then there's Carlos from Brazil. He said, "I was fine watching Netflix with subtitles, But when I met English speakers at a party, I couldn't say anything. I froze. These stories are common. But here's the truth. It's not because you're bad at English. It's because you haven't trained for speed. Classroom English is like swimming in a small pool. Real conversations. That's like being thrown into the ocean. Different environment, different skill set. And that's exactly what we're going to help you master in this episode.
That's right. So, if you've ever felt like Priya or Carlos, if you've ever walked away from a conversation thinking, why couldn't I respond faster? It's not your fault. It's just that no one taught you how to train your brain for fast conversations. But that's about to change. Let me ask you something. When you hear someone say a simple phrase in English like, "Hey, what's up?" what happens in your mind? Do you hear the words and start converting them into your native language? Maybe you break it down like this. Hey means hello. What's up means, what is above? Wait, no, it's asking how I am. And by the time you figure it out, the other person has already moved on. This is the biggest barrier to fluency that most learners don't realize. They are stuck in translation mode. Your brain is treating English like a math equation, trying to solve it every time. But here's the truth. Fluency begins when you stop translating and start feeling the language. When you hear, "That's crazy," a native speaker doesn't break it into words, they just feel the emotion. Surprise, shock, excitement. That's the key. You need to shift from word processing to emotional reaction. We call this the direct understanding technique. It's the fastest way to rewire your brain for quick conversations. Once you master this, your English will never feel slow again.
I remember the exact moment I realized translation was my enemy. I was in London meeting a friend for coffee. She said, "Oh my God, the traffic was insane." And guess what I did? I froze. In my mind, I was thinking, traffic means cars, insane means crazy. Does she mean there were crazy people on the road? By the time I pieced it together, she had already started a new topic. I felt so embarrassed. But here's what changed everything for me. I learned to feel the meaning instead of translating the words. When someone says, "Traffic was insane," don't break it down. Just react. Feel the frustration. Imagine being stuck in traffic, horns honking. That's it. Your brain connects it naturally. That's the direct understanding technique. It's like when you see fire, you don't think, "Oh, fire is hot." You feel danger and move. English should work the same way. When you hear, "That's crazy," don't translate. Feel the shock. Feel the surprise. The faster you build this emotional connection, the faster your responses will become. That's when you start sounding natural.
For anyone listening, you might be thinking, that sounds great, but how do I actually do this? Don't worry, you can train this. Here's a simple but powerful exercise you can start today. We call it emotion listening practice. Step 1. Find short clips of native English conversations, movies, YouTube, podcasts, even this episode. Step 2. Focus on common phrases like, "That's awesome," "No way," "You're kidding me," or "What a mess." Step 3. Instead of writing down the meaning, stop and ask yourself, what emotion do I feel? Is it excitement, surprise, anger, confusion? Don't analyze. Feel it. Your goal is to train your brain to react emotionally, not logically. Over time, your brain will skip the translation step and go straight to understanding. That's when your speed will skyrocket. You'll hear, "That's crazy," and instead of thinking, you'll laugh and say, "Oh, really? What happened?" Just like a native speaker. That's fluency. It's not perfection, it's reaction speed. Start today. Stop translating. Start feeling. Your whole experience with English will transform.
You might feel like you're not good enough at English because you struggle to keep up, but that's not the truth. The real problem is that you're trying to speak two languages at the same time, your native language and English. That's exhausting. You need to let go of your first language when you're in English mode. I know that's scary, but it's also freeing. The moment you stop translating, conversations become easier. You'll start feeling the rhythm of English instead of fighting it. You'll enjoy conversations instead of fearing them. You'll react naturally instead of getting stuck. That's when you finally start feeling confident. Don't aim for perfect sentences. Aim for quick reactions. That's what makes you sound fluent. That's what we're helping you build in this episode.
Have you ever sat through a conversation in English, nodding along, but deep down you were completely lost? You heard the words, but nothing made sense. That's because you were listening passively, just letting the sounds hit your ears without actually processing them. And that's the trap so many learners fall into. They think if they simply listen more, they'll understand better. But listening is not just about hearing. It's about training your ears to filter what matters and ignore what doesn't. You see, native speakers don't speak slowly, and they don't always use perfect grammar. They blend words together, drop sounds, and use slang. If you try to catch every single word, you'll fall behind. That's why you need to listen with intention. Focus on catching the key points, not every detail. When someone says, "Hey, want to grab coffee later?" you don't need to process each sound perfectly. You only need 2 anchor words, coffee and later. That's it. You instantly know they're inviting you for coffee sometime later. This is what fast listeners do. They focus on what matters, and they let the rest flow past. Once you master this, conversations will start making sense, even when they're quick.
That's exactly right. I remember when I first moved to London, I thought I was listening carefully, but I wasn't. I was trying to catch every single word. If I missed one word, I panicked and felt like I had lost the entire meaning. But the truth is, that's not how listening works in fast conversations. I learned this the hard way when I was at a party. Someone asked me, "Hey, you up for grabbing some food later?" But it was said so quickly it sounded like, "Hey, you up for grabbing some food later?" I froze. My brain was searching for every individual word. I missed the start, I missed the middle, and by the end, I was left with nothing. But later, a friend taught me the power of anchor words. You don't need to understand every word. You just need the important ones, food and later. Once I started listening for those anchor words, nouns, verbs, key details, everything changed. I relaxed more in conversations. I realized I could understand the general message even if I missed a few words. That gave me confidence. So, you need to shift your goal from understanding everything to understanding enough to respond. That's the mindset that unlocks fast listening.
Exactly. And here's something most learners don't know. Even native speakers don't hear every single word perfectly. We're guessing and filling in the gaps all the time. Our brains predict meaning based on context and anchor words. When someone says, "Hey, you coming to the thing tomorrow?" we don't need to know what the thing is right away. We catch coming and tomorrow, so we know it's an invitation for something tomorrow. That's the real skill. Spot the nouns and verbs. Those are your anchor words. They hold the meaning. The small connecting words like to, the, with. They're like background music. They give structure, but they're not what carries the message. So, the next time you hear, "Hey, want to grab coffee later?" don't panic. Your ears should lock on to coffee, and later, boom, you understand the point. You can respond, "Yeah, sure. What time?" That's fluency. Not perfect understanding, quick understanding.
That's such an important shift. And for everyone listening right now, here's what you can do to start training your ears today. The next time you listen to a conversation, whether it's a podcast, a movie, or real people, stop trying to hear everything. Instead, play a little game. Ask yourself, what are the anchor words here? Listen for the action and the subject. What's the verb? What's the noun? Let's practice. If I say, "I'm thinking of going hiking this weekend," what are your anchor words? You don't need to memorize the entire sentence. Your ears should pick up thinking, hiking, and weekend. That's all you need to get the point. The rest is extra detail. Start training this today. Whenever you listen, pause and ask, what were the key words? This will teach your brain to filter the noise and lock onto meaning. Exactly what you need to survive fast conversations.
And here's the best part. Once you start training like this, your brain gets faster. It becomes automatic. You'll walk into a room, someone will say, "Hey, we're grabbing lunch, want to join?" And without even thinking, your brain will catch lunch and join. You'll smile and say, "Sure, let's go." No translation, no panic, just natural response. That's what we're building. Listening speed, not just listening skill. So, start this practice today. Train your ears. Look for anchor words. Build that quick filter. Have you ever had this experience? Someone starts talking fast and you feel completely lost. But then, at the very end, you suddenly understand what they meant. It's like you finally catch up, but it's already too late. You missed your chance to respond naturally. That's because your brain was trying to understand each word in the moment instead of predicting what was coming next. Here's something most English learners don't know. Conversations follow patterns. Native speakers don't invent new ways to talk every time. They use familiar patterns over and over. When you learn to spot those patterns, your brain relaxes. You predict what's coming next before they even finish their sentence. This makes you faster because you're not waiting for the final word to understand the meaning. You're ready before it even arrives. That's what fluent speakers do. They're not just listening, they're predicting. Once you master this, conversations will start to feel easier and more natural, even when people talk quickly.
That was a huge breakthrough for me. I remember this one time, I was in a cafe and someone said, "Hey, what are you up to this weekend?" But I was still in that beginner mindset, trying to decode every word. I heard, "What are you up?" And I panicked. I thought, up where? Up what? But actually, native speakers ask this all the time. It's just a pattern. It means they're asking about your plans. Once I started noticing these patterns, I realized that most conversations follow a structure. We call it the conversation flow formula. It's usually greeting, offer or question, detail, response. Like this, someone says, "Hey, how's it going?" That's the greeting. Then they ask, "What are you up to this weekend?" That's the question. You tell them your plans. That's the detail. Then they respond, "Oh, that sounds fun." That's the response. Once I understood this flow, I started predicting what people would say next. My brain relaxed. Instead of being surprised, I was ready. And when you're ready, you respond faster and you sound confident.
Exactly. This is what fluent speakers are doing without thinking. They've heard these patterns thousands of times, so their brain knows what's coming before it happens. Let's break it down. When someone says, "Hey, how's it going?" they don't expect your life story. They expect good you or not bad you. That's the pattern. When they say, "What are you doing this weekend?" they expect you to mention your plans or say, "Nothing much, how about you?" It's all predictable. The same goes for invitations. If someone says, "Hey, we're grabbing coffee later, want to come?" they're not expecting a speech. They expect something like, "Yeah, sure," or "I can't today, maybe next time." When you start seeing these patterns, you realize you don't need to invent new answers every time. You already know what fits. Your brain isn't working from zero, it's just choosing from a few common responses. That's why fluent speakers sound smooth. They're not faster because they know more English. They're faster because they know what to expect.
That's the key, expectation. Your brain relaxes when it expects what's coming. Think about it. When you watch a movie in your language, you can sometimes predict the next line. That's because you understand the flow. English is the same. The more you hear these patterns, the easier it gets. And here's the good news. You can start practicing this today. Listen to native speakers, and instead of focusing on every word, pay attention to the pattern. When someone asks a question, pause and think. What do they expect me to say? When you hear an invitation, notice the flow. Are they waiting for a yes or no? This shifts your brain from reacting to predicting. And when you predict, You feel in control. You feel confident. And that's when you start sounding natural in fast conversations. So, from today, train your brain to see the patterns, not just the words. It's a game changer.
That's exactly it. Once you unlock this, you'll notice something amazing. You start finishing people's sentences in your mind. You hear the start of a question, and you already know how it's going to end. That's fluency. It's not just understanding, it's being ready before the other person finishes. This is what makes you fast. You'll go from freezing to flowing. Picture this. You're in a group, and someone cracks a joke. Everyone's laughing. Someone turns to you and says, "What do you think?" Your heart skips a beat. You know you need to say something, anything, but your brain is scrambling. You're searching for the perfect words, but all you manage is an awkward, yeah, good. And the conversation moves on without you. You feel invisible. That moment right there, it's not about your grammar. It's because you didn't have a quick response ready. Conversations, especially fast ones, are all about speed. Sometimes it's not what you say, it's how quickly you say it. Fluent speakers sound natural because they have ready-made response phrases in their minds, quick, easy lines that fill those gaps. These are your conversation lifelines. They stop you from freezing. They buy you time to think while keeping you engaged. And the best part? You don't have to invent them. They already exist. You just need to learn them and pull them out when you need them.
That's exactly what saved me when I first started working in an English-speaking office. I used to overthink every reply. If someone said, "How was your weekend?" I'd start constructing this whole story in my mind, checking my grammar, thinking about tenses. By the time I was ready, the conversation had already moved on. I felt so frustrated. Then I noticed something. My colleagues weren't giving long, perfect answers. They were saying things like, "Oh yeah, it was good. You?" Or, "Pretty quiet, how about you?" Quick, simple, but natural. That's when I realized I didn't need perfect sentences. I needed fast responses. I started writing down these common phrases. I called them my lifesavers. Simple lines like, "Oh, I see what you mean," or "That sounds great," or "Wow, that's interesting." These were like conversation fuel. They kept the flow going while I figured out my next thought. And something amazing happened. The more I used them, the more confident I felt. I stopped panicking, because I knew I was never speechless again.
That's the power of having these response blocks ready. You don't have to think. You just grab and go. Think of them like apps on your phone. When you need to check the weather, you don't build an app from scratch. You open the weather app and check it. Done. Conversations work the same way. You don't need to build every sentence. You open the right app. "That's awesome," or "Oh, I'm not sure, but maybe," and you keep moving. This is why fluent speakers sound fast. They recycle these quick response phrases every day. It's not about being clever. It's about being ready.
Exactly. And here's something important. Using these phrases doesn't make you sound less intelligent. Some learners worry. If I just say simple things like, "That's great," or "I get you," will I sound basic? Number, you'll sound fluent, because that's what real conversations are. Native speakers say, "Oh, cool," and "Really?" "Wow," all the time. Real fluency is rhythm, not complexity. These blocks give you rhythm, and rhythm builds confidence. You don't need a perfect sentence, you need the next sentence. That's what keeps you in the conversation.
So here's what you can do today. Build your toolkit. Write down 5 quick response phrases that feel natural to you. Here are a few that work in almost any situation. 1. "That sounds great." 2. "Oh, I see what you mean." 3. "Wow, that's interesting." 4. "I'm not sure, but maybe." 5. "Let me think about that." Practice these until they come out automatically. Because in fast conversations, thinking slows you down, but being ready speeds you up. You want your brain to reach for these like muscle memory. Once you have them, you'll never freeze again. You'll keep up, you'll stay confident, and you'll finally feel fluent, even in fast, real-life conversations.
And trust me, this is a game changer. When you know you always have something to say, Your anxiety disappears. You relax into conversations instead of stressing out. That's when your real personality starts to shine in English.
Close your eyes for a second and imagine this. You're talking to a friend and they ask, "What did you do over the weekend?" In your mind, you start pulling up the memory, a park, laughter, maybe a coffee shop. But instead of describing that picture, your brain goes into grammar mode. You start thinking, okay, past tense. Did I go or went? Is it in the park or at the park? Wait, what's the word for that thing we ate? And while you're busy doing this grammar puzzle, the conversation moves on. You missed your chance. Sound familiar? This is what happens to so many learners. You get stuck focusing on words when you should be focusing on ideas. Fluency isn't about building perfect sentences. It's about delivering the message. Think about how kids speak. They don't worry about perfect grammar. They point, they explain, they show you what they mean. That's what fluent adults do too. We think in pictures and ideas, not in grammar rules. The moment you switch from word building to idea sharing, your brain speeds up. You start speaking more naturally because you're describing what you see, not calculating the correct verb tense.
That shift was life-changing for me. I used to freeze in conversations because I was scared of making mistakes. I thought every sentence had to be correct. If someone asked me, "What's your favorite food?" I didn't picture my favorite dish. I thought, okay, subject, verb, how do I say I like in the right way? But when I finally let that go, everything changed. I remember once I wanted to tell someone about a beach trip, but I forgot the word sunset. Before, I would have panicked. But that day, I just said, when the sun goes down and everything is orange, it was beautiful. And you know what? They understood me perfectly. That's when I realized fluency is about being understood, not being perfect. Your brain moves faster when it's painting a picture, not searching for perfect grammar. The more you focus on describing the idea, the more confident you become. And here's the surprising thing. Your grammar improves naturally over time, simply because you're speaking more. Mistakes teach you, but they don't stop you. The real enemy is hesitation.
Exactly. When you're in a fast conversation, perfection is your enemy. Speed is your friend. Native speakers make mistakes all the time. We start sentences and don't finish them. We say like or when we're thinking. But we keep talking because our goal is to communicate, not to be perfect. Here's a simple trick I always teach. When you're speaking, picture what you're talking about. If you're talking about your trip to the mountains, see the mountains in your mind, the trees, the sky, the fresh air. Then describe what you see, even if the words aren't perfect. Your brain works faster this way because images are quicker than words. And when you get stuck, don't stop, just explain. If you forget the word tent, say, that little house we build outside when we camp. That's fluency. It's not knowing every word, it's knowing how to keep the conversation moving, even when you don't.
I love that. And for everyone listening, let's try a quick exercise together right now. Think of a place you love, maybe your home, a park, or a favorite cafe. Now, picture it in your mind. Don't think about words, just see it. What do you see? Is there a table? Are there trees? Is the sun out? Now try describing it in English. Forget about grammar. Just describe what you see as if you were showing it to a friend. You might say, "There's a big tree with flowers. I sit under it. There's a small table and I drink coffee there." It's simple, right? But it's fluent. You're describing a picture in your head, not translating words. That's the goal. The more you do this, the faster your brain connects ideas to English. And when you can think in ideas, not words, fast conversations will stop feeling scary. You'll speak freely, because your mind is finally free.
That's it. Ideas, not words. Pictures, not grammar rules. That's the mindset shift. And here's a challenge. Every day, pick one memory and describe it out loud for 1 minute. Don't worry about mistakes. Just talk. Describe what you see in your mind. Do this for a week, and I promise, you'll notice a change. You'll feel your brain moving faster, your words coming easier, and your confidence growing. This is how you break the habit of overthinking. You stop focusing on words and start focusing on expressing yourself. And when you do that, you unlock real fluency. Have you ever felt like you were finally getting better at English, and then suddenly, you hear someone with a different accent, and it's like you're starting from zero again? Maybe you understood your teacher's English perfectly, but when you spoke to someone from Australia, the UK, or even someone from a different part of the US, their accent hit you like a wall. It's overwhelming, right? And then, to make it worse, they start throwing in slang, shortcuts, casual expressions that you never learned in class. Suddenly, it feels like you're hearing a different language. You freeze, you smile and nod, but you have no idea what they said. Here's the truth. This happens to everyone, even fluent speakers. It's not a sign that your English is bad. It's simply a skill you haven't practiced yet. And once you understand how to handle accents and slang, you'll never feel powerless again.
Oh, I remember that feeling so well. My first month in London was a disaster. I thought I spoke decent English. But then I met my friend Emma, born and raised in East London. She said, "All right, mate, fancy a cuppa?" And I thought, mate, cuppa? What's that? Are we fighting? Are we drinking something? I froze. I felt stupid. But later, I found out she was just asking if I wanted tea. That's when I realised accents and slang aren't problems, they're just new information. It's like learning to drive on a different road. The basics are the same, but there are new signs, new turns. Once you get used to them, it all starts to make sense. And here's what really helped me. I stopped pretending I understood everything. I started asking questions like, "Sorry, what does that mean?" Or, "Do you mean tea?" And guess what? People didn't get annoyed. They helped me. Because even native speakers ask each other to repeat things sometimes.
That's such an important point. I've lived in different countries, and I still get confused when I hear a heavy Scottish accent or slang from New York. And I'm a native speaker. Here's the truth. Nobody understands everything all the time. The difference is, fluent speakers aren't afraid to ask. They know that clarifying is part of communication. Think about it. If you're talking to a friend in your native language and you don't hear something, you say, "What was that?" Or, "Sorry, say that again." You don't feel bad about it, right? It's the same in English. So here's your tool, the clarify and keep going strategy. When someone says something you don't understand, don't freeze. Clarify and move on. Say, "Sorry, what was that?" Do you mean, "Oh, got it"? These phrases buy you time and show confidence. They tell the other person, "I'm listening. I care. I just need a little help." And that's what fluent speakers do every day.
That's so true. And I want everyone listening to know this. It's better to ask than to pretend. I used to fake understanding. Someone would say something. I'd nod and say, "Yeah." And then later, I'd realise I agreed to something I didn't understand. Once I ended up at a salsa dancing class because I thought I was going to a coffee shop. After that, I told myself, never fake it again. And here's what happens when you start asking, you relax. You stop worrying about getting it all right. You start focusing on staying in the conversation, and slowly your ear gets better. You start recognizing that "want a cuppa" means "do you want tea?" or that "gonna grab a bite" means "I'm going to eat." Slang and accents stop being scary. They become part of your fluency journey.
Exactly. It's a skill, and it grows with time. Start today. When you hear slang or a new accent, stay curious, not nervous. Ask, clarify, learn. Because every time you do that, you're building fluency muscle. You're proving to yourself that you can handle any conversation, anywhere. Let me take you into a situation that every English learner knows. You're in a conversation, maybe with a colleague, maybe with a native English speaker. Everything is going okay. And then, they ask you a question. A simple question like, "So, what do you think about that?" And suddenly, everything in your brain goes blank. You know the words, you know the answer, but nothing is coming out, just silence. And with every second that passes, that silence feels heavier. You start thinking, Oh no, they're waiting. They probably think I'm stupid. I need to say something. Anything. So you panic. You either blurt out something random or you mumble, yeah, good, just to fill the gap. And afterward, you walk away feeling frustrated, thinking, why can't I speak normally? Why does this keep happening? I get it. We've all been there. But let me tell you something that could completely change the way you feel about conversations in English. Pauses are not your enemy. They are your friend. That's right. You don't need to fear silence. Silence is part of fluent conversation. Once you understand this, your confidence will skyrocket.
That realization was life-changing for me. When I was starting out, I thought fluent people never paused, never hesitated, never made mistakes. I believed that being fluent meant every sentence comes out fast and perfect. So when I froze, I thought I had failed. When I said the wrong word, I felt embarrassed, like I was exposed. I thought, everyone can see I'm not good enough. That fear made me speak quickly, trying to fill every gap. But you know what? Speaking fast didn't help me. It made me more nervous. I made even more mistakes. I started avoiding conversations. And when I had to speak, I felt this pressure to be perfect. That pressure killed my confidence. But one day, something shifted. I was having coffee with a British friend, Emma. We were talking about weekend plans, and I asked her, "What are you doing this Saturday?" She paused. For maybe 5 or 6 seconds, she just sat there, thinking. And then she said, let me think. I might go see my sister. That moment hit me like a lightning bolt. She was a native speaker and she paused. She thought before answering. And she wasn't embarrassed. She was relaxed, confident, natural. That's when I realized pauses are normal. They don't mean you're failing, they mean you're thinking.
Exactly. Let's break this down. We are humans, not machines. Even the best speakers, whether it's your favorite actor, a CEO, or a native speaker in your office, they pause when they think. The difference is, they don't panic when they pause. They see it as part of the conversation. But as learners, we often believe a lie. We think, if I pause, they'll know my English is bad. But here's the truth. Pauses often make you look smarter, not weaker. Why? Because when you pause, people think, oh, they're considering their answer carefully. It gives the impression that you're thoughtful, that you care about giving a good response. That's what fluent people do. They pause, but they stay calm. Think about your own language. If someone asks you a difficult question about your future, your work, or your family, don't you pause to think? Of course you do. Because thinking is normal. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of intelligence. But the fear of pauses makes you rush, and rushing leads to mistakes. Mistakes make you lose confidence. It's a cycle, but you can break that cycle right now.
Let me tell you what finally gave me control. I learned to buy time. I started using thinking phrases, little fillers that sound natural and give you a few extra seconds to think. These changed everything. Before, when someone asked me a question, my brain froze in panic. But when I started using these, I relaxed. If someone asked, "What do you think about the new manager?" I didn't panic. I said, let me think about that. Those few extra seconds let me breathe, organize my thoughts, and answer confidently. I felt in control. Here are some of my favorite ones. Let me think. Oh, that's a good question. Well, actually, I'm not sure, but these are lifesavers. They're not tricks. They're what native speakers use every day. I hear my British friends say, let me see, all the time. It's natural. It's fluent. It's part of the rhythm of English.
Absolutely. These phrases are like pause buttons for your brain. They give you time, but you still sound fluent. You sound confident. And here's the secret. Native speakers rely on these too. You know those times when you hear someone say, yeah, so, well, that's them buying time. They're thinking while keeping the conversation moving. You can do it too, but with more polished versions like, that's interesting. Let me see. Well, it depends. When you master these, The fear of pausing disappears. You know that even if you don't have the answer right away, you have a bridge, a few seconds to think. And those few seconds give you control.
And you know what happens next? Your fear of mistakes starts to fade. Because you're calm, you start thinking more clearly. And even if you make a mistake, it doesn't feel like the end of the world. I still say things wrong sometimes. I might say, he go to the shop, instead of, he went. But now, instead of panicking, I just pause, laugh, and say, oops, he went. And guess what? Nobody cares. People don't judge you, they see you as human. When you handle mistakes confidently, it actually makes you look stronger.
That's the mindset shift. Fluency is not about being perfect. It's about staying calm, even when things go wrong. That's what fluent speakers do. They pause, they buy time, and they keep moving. So, starting today, change your relationship with pauses. See them as a sign of confidence, not weakness. When you get a question, pause on purpose. Say, let me think, and give yourself those 3 to 5 seconds. Feel the power, feel the control. And here's your challenge. Practice pausing today. Have a short conversation, and when someone asks you a question, pause before answering. Try using, oh, that's a good question, or let me think. Feel how it changes your energy. You'll see, you don't lose respect, you gain it.
The day you stop fearing pauses, you step into real fluency. You stop feeling like a learner trying to survive. You feel like a confident speaker, taking your time, owning your space. That's fluency. It's not fast talking, it's calm control.
Let me ask you something. When you hear someone speak English quickly, do you ever think, I wish I could speak that fast too? You admire how their words just flow naturally, like water. No hesitation, no pausing, no struggle to find the right words. It looks so effortless. But let me tell you something most people never realize. That speed is not a gift. It's not natural talent. It's a muscle. And like any muscle, it gets stronger the more you train it. Nobody is born a fast, fluent speaker, not even native speakers. They've been practicing their whole lives. And the good news? You can train your brain to reach that level too. You can build your speed and confidence through real-time practice. This is the step that takes you from knowing English in your head to speaking English effortlessly out loud.
I remember the exact moment I realized my brain needed speed training. I was in a small group at work and someone asked me, hey, can you handle that report by Friday? I knew what they said. I knew the answer. But my response came out so slowly. I said, yeah, I think I can do that. It sounded like I wasn't sure, even though I was, and I felt so frustrated. I thought, why is my brain so slow? I know the words. But later, I learned this. Knowing English in your mind is not the same as producing it in real time. Speaking is a different skill. It's like knowing how to dance in your head versus actually moving your feet when the music plays. Your mouth needs to catch up with your mind. And that's what practice is for. It's not about learning more words, it's about training your mouth, your tongue, your brain to move fast together. That's when fluency starts to feel natural.
Exactly. And here's how you train that speed. The first technique is something I tell every learner to start with. It's called the shadowing technique. It's simple, but powerful. You pick a video, a podcast, or any native English speaker's voice. You play it. And as they speak, you repeat everything they say at the same speed, with the same tone, like their shadow. You don't pause. You don't worry about mistakes. You just follow their rhythm, word for word. It's hard at first. You'll feel like you're chasing the speaker. But that's the point. It forces your brain to speed up. Your tongue starts moving faster. Your mouth gets comfortable forming English sounds quickly. And after a few weeks, you'll notice. You can speak faster, with less effort. Your brain and mouth start working together, naturally.
Oh, shadowing was a game changer for me. At first, I thought it was silly. I was sitting alone in my room, talking along with a YouTube video, feeling like an actor in a bad movie. But after a week, I noticed something incredible. I stopped pausing so much in conversations. My responses became quicker because my brain was used to hearing and producing English at the same time. And that's the key. You're not just listening, you're training your mouth to keep up. But there's more. I added 1-minute drills to my routine. Every day, I set a timer for 1 minute. I asked myself a simple question like, "What's your favorite movie?" And I had to speak for 1 minute, non-stop. No pauses, no worrying about mistakes. Just talking. Even if I didn't know the perfect word, I described it. I forced my brain to fill the gaps quickly. That's when I really started feeling fast. My thoughts started flowing faster in English than ever before.
That's brilliant. And that's the goal, training your brain to keep moving forward. There's one more exercise I love for this. We call it fast reaction games. Here's how it works. You set a timer for 30 seconds. You pick any random object, your phone, a coffee cup, a chair, and you describe it out loud for 30 seconds. Don't stop. Even if you run out of ideas, you keep talking. This is my phone. It's black. I use it every day. It has apps. I watch videos on it. Sometimes I call my mom. It doesn't have to be clever. It just has to keep flowing. Because that's how your brain gets faster. It learns to think in English under pressure.
And that pressure is exactly what makes it work. It's like lifting weights at the gym. At first, it's hard. Your mind will feel tired. You'll make mistakes. You'll say a lot. But after a week, you'll feel stronger. After a month, you'll start speaking without needing to push so hard. Your brain will move naturally in English. I noticed that when I started these drills, my real-life conversations became easier. Someone would ask me, "How was your day?" And instead of freezing, I had already trained myself to just start talking. That's what practice gives you. It removes the fear of starting, because you've done it 100 times alone. Your speed becomes your new normal.
That's exactly it. Speed is a muscle. You build it through daily training. This is what separates learners who understand English from learners who speak English fluently in the real world. It's the training you do when no one is watching that makes you ready when everyone is listening. So, here's what you can start today. 1. Shadowing. Pick a video. Follow the speaker in real time. Every day, 5 minutes. 2. 1-minute drills. Ask yourself a random question. Speak for 1 minute, no stopping. 3. Fast reaction. Game. Pick any object. Describe it non-stop for 30 seconds. Do this every day, even 5 to 10 minutes. And I promise you, after a few weeks, you'll feel faster, you'll feel sharper, you'll stop freezing. That's when you'll realize you're not just learning English anymore, you're living it.
And the best part, when you speak faster and more naturally, you start enjoying conversations. You stop worrying about every word, and you start focusing on the person in front of you. That's fluency. It's not about speed for the sake of speed. It's about freedom. The freedom to speak without fear. The freedom to express yourself anytime, anywhere.
So, start today. Build that speed muscle. Push yourself when you're alone, so you're ready when it matters. And in the next chapter, we'll put everything together. The listening skills, the confidence, the speed. And we'll give you a final blueprint for mastering fast English conversations in any situation. Let's bring it all home. So, here we are. We've walked through every step, every strategy, every technique to help you not just survive, but thrive in fast English conversations. And I want you to pause for a moment and think about something. How would your life change if you never froze in an English conversation again? If you could walk into a room, join any discussion, and feel calm, confident, and in control. That's not a dream. It's completely possible for you. But it doesn't happen by accident. It happens because you train for it.
Exactly. And remember, fluency is not perfection. It's flow. It's about staying in the conversation even when it's fast, even when you don't know every word. You've learned the tools. Stop translating. Listen for anchor words. Predict what's coming. Use quick response phrases. Think in ideas, not grammar. Embrace pauses. Train your speed daily. These are not just tips. They're the keys that unlock fluency. But keys only work if you turn them. You have to practice. You have to start today.
That's it. And I'll tell you this, the first few times, it will feel hard. You'll feel slow. You'll make mistakes. But every mistake is progress. Every awkward pause is growth. Because every time you push through it, you're rewiring your brain. You're building that fluency muscle. And one day, you'll be in the middle of a fast conversation, and you'll realize you're keeping up. You're flowing. You're speaking without fear. That moment is waiting for you. And it's closer than you think.
We believe in you. Keep speaking, keep growing. We'll see you next time on English Podcast Mastery. Take care.